In a serene village nestled between mountains and the sea, there lived a wise Zen master named Ryo. Ryo often spent his days meditating by the shore, contemplating the mysteries of existence. One day, a young seeker named Kaito came to Ryo. Troubled by the complexities of life and death, being and non being, Kaito asked, Master, how can I understand the true nature of life and existence? Ryo smiled and beckoned Kaito to follow him to the beach. As they walked along the shore, Ryo pointed to the waves gently lapping against the sand. Consider these waves, Ryo began. Each wave rises from the ocean, travels a distance, and then returns to where it came from. It has a distinct form for a while, and then it merges back into the vast sea. Kaito watched the waves thoughtfully, noting their rhythmic rise and fall. But master, he asked, what do the waves have to do with understanding life and existence? Ryo picked up a pebble and tossed it into the water. Ripples spread out in circles, gradually dissipating into the ocean. These waves are like our lives, Ryo explained. We rise from the great ocean of being, live our lives, and then return to the source. While we have form, we are both individual and part of the great whole. This is the nature of being and non-being, Kaito inquired. Ryo nodded. Non-being is not nothingness, but the potential from which all things arise. The ocean holds countless potential waves, just as the universe holds countless potential lives. When a wave falls, it doesn't cease to exist. It becomes one with the ocean, ready to rise again in a new form. The cycle of being and non-being is eternal. Kaito felt a sense of peace wash over him as he grasped the master's teachings. So life is like a wave, always changing, always part of something greater. Precisely, said Ryo. Do not fear the changing forms of life or the return to the source. Embrace each moment, each rise and fall, knowing that you are always part of the infinite ocean of existence. With this newfound understanding, Kaito bowed deeply to the master and continued his journey, carrying the wisdom of the waves within his heart. That is one of few Zen stories that really connect with me and connected with me when I first read it. Because when I first read it, I understood it entirely, the message that was being delivered. And that is only because I have a reasonable understanding in regards to Zen teachings and understanding, a lot of the point that these Zen koans and these parables are trying to express. So for me, I totally understood that life is a wave. And so I hope to help you understand that with this video. Because essentially, have you noticed that everything comes and goes in waves? Like virtually everything. Everything in our life. Waves, ultimately. Think about those times when everything is going absolutely right and you can do no wrong. And then there are times where everything feels wrong, and no matter what you do, nothing can go your way. No matter how you try and twist and turn it, everything goes wrong. Well, essentially, that is life. It waves. Things go up and things come down. We wake up and we have to go to sleep. And no matter how much you try to stay awake, at some point your body will shut down and you will have to go to sleep and take a nap. It's just on and off happening. And so why does everything wave? Well, the reality is, how else could anything be? If life or existence was constant, then we would not know the difference between life and death. You see, life is a system of on and off, a process of breathing in and breathing out. The Bible says, in the beginning was the Word, and the Word was with God. Words produce sound, and sound travel in waves. Vibration and resonance create the universe we exist in. So the waves that I'm referring to permeates our entire existence on every plane. Everything waves, everything vibrates. According to Nikola Tesla, he said that if you want to understand the universe, you have to understand it in waves and frequencies and vibration, because everything does this waving effect of rising and falling, right? And most of mankind has seemed to have forgotten that. Our religious organizations don't teach us that this rise and fall is a part of life, and this rise and fall of experience within our life is also a part of it, because a lot of people go through some dark times in their life and they don't understand why it's taking place, but this is part of being, right? A lot of us go through peaks in our life, high times where things are perfect, and we don't understand how it got like that, but the reality is this is the nature of existence. There is a waving effect, a rising and falling of experience, right? And we have to grasp that. And you know and there are a few texts that expand on this quite a bit, and particularly the Kabbalion. I'm not sure if you've heard of it, but it's written by the three initiates. And it's funny because anytime I pick up a book and it mentions anything about initiates, I know that it's gonna be good. And like some other books I've read, the Golden Verses of Pythagoras talks about the initiates, and you know doing other research and things like that, I understand that the biblical uh, text itself is not written for the average person, but it's written for an initiate, someone who has in-depth wisdom and understanding of what is being expressed, and only then can you really understand it, right? But nevertheless, let's stay here. The Kabbalion, written by the three initiates, expand on what most people need to understand, and the text expands on 7 principles which are considered to be universal laws. These laws govern existence and allows for life's complexities, variations, and continuation, right? So let's go through these 7 laws quick. The first law, 1, mentalism. The all is mind, the universe is mental. What does that mean? Even though we have physical bodies, we all exist in a mental universe. We all exist in the mind of the Creator, mind of Source, mind of the Ineffable One, mind of God. We all exist within the mind of God. And it's funny because we all experience this physical life, but we don't exist in the physical world. We all exist in our mind. We have these physical apparatuses like our senses, our sense organs, tongue, taste, sight, hearing, feeling, all other apparatus. I'm messing my words up. All of these different sense organs help us to experience life, but really we don't exist in this physical form. We are in a physical body, but we don't exist in this physical form. So all is mental, all is taking place in our mind. Correspondence. Law number 2, correspondence. As above, so below. As below, so above. Now, what does that mean? As above, so below. This existence itself is fractal. So if whatever is taking place in this plane of existence is also taking place in the higher realm, whatever is taking place in the physical realm is taking place in your mind. That's why they say that your mind determines your life experience that you will have, because as above, so below. The earth is below, this physical realm is below, the mind is above, right? Law number 3, vibration. Nothing rests, everything moves. This is one thing that people need to understand, is that everything moves, nothing stays, nothing rests, because if anything rests, it dies, right? And it dies from this plane but exists within another plane. So if you see something resting, even if there's a table in front of you, that table is not resting, it's vibrating at a tremendous pace that you can't get your hands through it, right? On a molecular level, on an atomic level, everything is vibrating. Nothing rests, everything moves. Law number 4, polarity. Everything is dual. Everything has poles. Everything has its pairs of opposites. And in life, we think that everything is one way, but in reality, when you're experiencing something, you're merely experiencing the opposite of something else. That is why for me, when I'm going through life and I'm going through a tough period, I understand that this tough experience I'm having, or this difficult experience I'm having now, is the opposite of a good experience, and it's only a matter of time before I go through this difficult time, or this low point in my life, and rise to a high point in my life where I have a much better experience. And so polarity exists. And you know, most important to this video right now that I'm trying to emphasize is rhythm. Everything flows out and in. That is law number 5, rhythm. Everything flows out and in. Everything has its tides. All things rise and all things fall. This is the nature of existence. We come into being, we live our lives, reach the zenith, and then we fall back to a point where we get old and sick and we die. And then that's the rhythm of life, right? We have good times in our life, bad times in our life. Everything in our lives has a rhythm. Everything, all things that are created by man, they're created and in time they decay. That's their rhythm, falling apart. All thing has rhythm. Law number 7, cause and effect, right? Every cause has its effect. Every effect has its cause. Everything happens according to the law. And last but not least, number 7, gender. Gender is everything. Gender is in everything. Everything has its masculine and feminine principle. Gender manifests on all planes. So even though we have this physical experience, we may think that this is it, but this is just the physical aspect of our being. There's an unseen aspect that we cannot see with our physical eyes, but we can experience within our mind, considering all things is mental, right? And so the point I'm trying to emphasize with these 7 principles is that this rhythm and this flow that we experience in our life is part of the universal law that governs existence, that allow all things to be. All of existence is a flow. All of existence vibrates. All of it is vibration, frequency, energy. It all depends on that. And so even though we have a physical life, we may not see it in our physical manifestation that this rhythm exists, but it really does. Because the moment you are born, you're born as a small child, and then you grow into a larger being, and then you decay as you become older, and then you die. And that is your flow, your wave of your being, right? And then there's also a wave of non-being, and we'll get into that a little bit more. And so the principle of rhythm, which, like I said, we're using to reference today, ultimately justifies the flow of good times and bad times. This flow of being and non-being, was what really gives our existence meaning. And so this perpetual waving and fluctuation of life is truly what we are. Our beingness exists in Our existence exists in being and non-being. It's an on and off of life. It's a dual system. And this system cannot exist with one side. It's impossible. You cannot have just life without death. Such thing cannot be. How would you know life if there was no such thing as death or non-existence or non-being, right? This flow of being a non-being is essential to us having this life, or this experience we call life. And it's funny because a lot of religious people, particularly Christians, see God as a benevolent figure who is entirely good. And yes, that is right. The Supreme One, the Ineffable One, the Creator, the source from which all things come, He is the supreme good, and He's entirely good. But what you have to understand that this good create both light and dark, right? This good create both good and evil, as stated in the Bible. And it says that I form the light and create darkness. I make peace and create evil. I, the Lord, do all these things. It's funny because Christians particularly will justify their actions and justify their beliefs with the Bible, but still miss all these statements. They won't see these statements in the Bible, and it's all right there, plain as day for us to see, but most people won't see it. And it's unfortunate because when you grasp and you understand that the Creator, or the source from which all things comes, encompasses both good and bad, it takes you to a whole higher level of understanding and wisdom in which life itself makes sense. And this is one of the reasons why, if you can understand that this concept that I'm trying to get across to you, things will be a lot clearer, right? So all things flow. Flow is the nature of existence. Continuous movement. Energy never rests. It always changes. And this change happens at a point where it no longer can maintain its particular form in this physical realm, so it transforms, or its particular form in whatever state it's in, so it transforms to something else. That's why energy never dies, it transforms, right? So we must understand that the opposite of good is not bad, but they are two sides of one pole. They are both sides of the same pole. So even if you have let's say, for example, let me take this pencil. If we take this pencil, right? We look at this pencil. There's two poles. Let's say this is north and this is south, right? If we cut off half of this pencil, or I literally break this thing in half, we still have two poles. There's still a north pole and there's a south pole. And if I break it in half again, there's still two poles, right? No matter what you do, you cannot do away with the two poles. And so this is existence, and on and off continuously. And so poles exist in everything, right? So there's no such thing as good as bad. It's a matter of perception, and how you allow your life to unfold will determine whether it's good or bad, right? It's totally up to you. But the reality is we all belong to the one pole, right, which is life. And most of us choose to do good in life while others do bad. It's a choice of perception and the way we allow our life to unfold. So you got to understand is that there's no good nor there's bad, there's experience, right? And this is one of the reasons why the Chinese revere the yin and yang sign, as they see it as one. They don't see it as two separate signs. They see it as one symbol representing both aspects of existence, right? And I will do another video particularly on the yin and yang sign to provide more information in regards to that, because it's a very powerful thing that you need to grasp. Anyways, so these fluctuations that happen affect our personal lives in many ways. For example, indecisions. Indecisions tend to happen when we get stuck in a transitory moment of our life, a moment when the unfoldment of our near and extended future could be affected negatively or positively by the decision we're about to make. Right? And so indecision arises when we're about to make a decision, because we don't want to make the wrong decision. We always want to make the right decision. But the reality is we could never make the right decision, right? We suffer because of fear of not making the right decision. When indecision happens, a lot of people go through a lot of heartache, and it's really tough to make a decision, and we suffer. We suffer because of it. Right? But the reality is that you could never make a wrong decision or a bad decision. It all comes out of the wash the same way. The reason for this is because after you make one decision on this situation, now there will be another thing that you will have to decide on. It always goes like that. No matter what you do, you'll always have to decide on something else, right? And even if you think you're making a final decision to end all decision, it's not going to happen. There'll always be another decision that you have to make. So what you have to realize is that it all comes out of the wash the same way. Just make a decision and walk with it, right? And so what you have to understand is that life is a flux, and you cannot stop it. If you decide to do something now with the belief and intention of it being the right one, that's great. But you may only be delaying the inevitable downturn of a life experience. Understand that whatever you decide to do, you will always have a moment or a period of anxiety and uncertainty. And equally, you will always have times of happiness and prosperity. It's all part of the game, right? It's all part of the game we call life. It's part of the drama. It's what gives everything meaning, because you cannot win without losing, and you cannot lose unless you're winning. This is the wave of life. So when you're winning in life, expect that there's going to be a period where you're going to be losing, or things are going to be challenging. And if you're losing in life, understand that there's going to be a period of winning, because this is the wave of existence that we all ride. We all ride this wave. So essentially, life is a roller coaster. We're on a roller coaster. We don't even realize it. Literally, we're on a roller coaster, right? So here's some advice when making decisions. As you are riding a wave, whether good or bad, knowing that you may be on an upturn of a wave or equally on a downturn, you need to embrace the outcome and see it as an experience for you to grow or take part in life. All of life is an experience for you to grow and to take part. So, this is what the great teachers wanted to get across to you. They wanted you to understand that choose the middle way. Choose the middle way. The middle way is called the Bodhisattva vow, right? Walk the path that keeps you from being too attached to desires, which causes suffering, right? And so you must become a Bodhisattva. Walk in the middle way. Don't get it too attached to things when they work out for you perfectly, and don't get attached to things when they don't work out, right? Stay in the middle way. When things work out, be grateful and appreciative of it. When it doesn't work out, understand that it's part of the process, right? And just ride the wave. Stay in the middle of the wave, right? Walk the Bodhisattva vow and understand that your life experience that you're having is but an experience for you to have. Nothing stays the same. Everything changes. We have to understand that things change all the time. So life waves. That's what it does. It waves. It's a beautiful thing to behold and to realize. Understanding this sets you free from everyday traps of life and its challenges, right? This is what the great ones wanted to get across to you, so that you can experience this life as intended to be a wonderful mystery and an experience. Being and non-being constitute this wave. Do not fear death, for it is part of the process called awareness and existence, right? Death is non-awareness, right? When we wake up in this life and we become conscious in this life, this is the point of consciousness. When we become aware of who we are in our consciousness, this is how we gain eternal life. Because when you transition from this realm, you are now a conscious, aware being in the state of non-being. And when you're conscious in the state of non-being, you are in the realm of the gods, and you can choose your next incarnation. All things being rises. All things in being rise, reaches its zenith, decays, and dies. That is the wave. Listen to this poem. And I can't remember who it's written by, but it goes, it's a little story, not a poem, sorry. I can't remember who it's written by, but it goes, I met a traveler from an antique land who said, 2 vast and trunkless legs of stone stand in the desert. Near them on the sand, half sunk, a shattered visage lies. It tells of a sculptor and his passion, which yet survive, stamped on these lifeless things. And on the pedestal, these words appear. My name is Ozymandias, King of Kings. Look on my works, ye mighty, and despair. Nothing beside remains. Round the decay of that colossal wreck, boundless and bare, the lone and level sands stretch away. You see, what is being emphasized here is that all the creations that this king Ozymandias had brought forth after centuries, or for centuries, after some time, had turned into dust. Its wave of existence had died. It's funny because there's the ancient ones, the old civilizations had built so much, and now look at it today. It's all decayed. It all turned into dust, into sand, and the earth just turned it into, just recycled it back into itself. And it's funny because we hold on to things in life and we cling to it, not realizing that it too will decay as we will decay before material things and transition out of this realm, but all things will decay. Thousands of years ago, they built great temples. Surprisingly, the pyramids are still standing. I don't know. Those people know exactly what they were doing when they built that stuff, because it's technologically advanced and it does not decay like everything else. So it's incredible to know that those buildings still exist through time. But all things decay. Those buildings are also decaying. The pyramids are also decaying, but at a much slower rate. Right? And so this is the main problem with humans. We don't seem to understand this concept. We don't seem to understand this concept, or we choose to ignore it. So, as a whole, humanity is clinging to this reality and to their life, believing that this is it, not realizing that this is but a temporary experience. Some ideas we have to also let go and let them die so that mankind can elevate itself to greater heights. But the powers that be are clinging on to old ways and old ideas, which is causing mankind to rot mentally. Literally, the beauty of mankind is rotting because we cling on to dead things and dead ideas that no longer serve the purpose or serve our purpose, right? These ideas are no longer needed. So it's creating a sickness, and this sickness has spread throughout the planet to other life forms, and other beings are being affected because of this clinging to dead things and dead ideas. We don't realize that all things wave, and so they have a period of usefulness, and then there's a period of non-usefulness, and this waving effect permeates all aspects and all part of life, no matter what it is. Whether, even if it's a thought, that thought has a wave form of existence to it. Whether it's, doesn't matter, we create things, doesn't matter what it is, all things are temporary and nothing is permanent. So ideally, the old thoughts and the old ideas that served us in the past, we should let go of them, because mankind as a whole, it's not serving us. And because it's not serving us and we're clinging to it, it's rotting us. It's causing us to rot. Here's another metaphor that can be used to illustrate this idea, and that is energy and water. All right. So we are made up of approximately 70% water, but most importantly, we are energy beings within this physical vessel. So the thing is, when you trap water in one place and you prevent it from flowing, it becomes toxic and it dies. There's no life in it. It becomes toxic and it dies. Equally, we as humans have become toxic because we are trapped in our old ways. We are trapped and not evolving, or not allowing the transition to happen so that we can evolve. And the reason for this is because the powers that be are keeping us trapped in old frame of work, restricting us and preventing humanity as a whole from evolving. Right? Those are what the elites are doing. They're keeping us trapped in a particular state of being so that we may not evolve. Right? Remember, everything flows. And so we are stuck in an old idea, stuck in an old place of thought, and we cannot flow with existence, and that's preventing our growth. And so we have to break the chain. And even if we don't come together and break this chain will be broken, no matter what it is. And so this stagnation of mankind will come to an inevitable end, and one day we will be free to fly again. I will do a video on the cycles of consciousness that we all go through, based on the holy sciences in regards to the Yuga cycles. So if the link is not up here right now, at some point I'll link it. I'll put a link to that video so we can, or you can at least get an understanding of why man's consciousness rise and fall through a period of supreme intellect and then a period of absolute retardation, which we are coming out of right now. We're coming out of the dark ages, the bronze age, and we're heading towards that zenith of the golden age. So our beingness is part of this wave. We are born, we grow, we reach our peak, we decline in strength. We're born, we grow, we reach our peak, we decline in strength, and we die. And after we enter a state of non-being, because life is this wave, right? And then there's like this line. This line is when we are born, reach our zenith, and then we get old, and then we die, and then below that, and then below, yeah. So there's this line. We reach our peak, we die. Below this line is where we die, and it's non-being, right? And so non-being, it's not actually death as non-existence, but it's just non-being, not in the physical form, right? And so we enter this state of non-being, which essentially is just not being in matter, but resting in the eternal self of not being, right? So of course we may wonder and ponder non-being. I myself, I don't have a definitive answer to it, but I have an idea. All of life relates to itself. Intrinsically, I can only imagine what non-being is like. And so essentially, think of it like going to sleep and waking up. And in that very moment you close your eyes, and you open it, it's morning. We have these experiences all the time, and at night we can't recall anything that happens within those 8 hours. We just close our eyes and then we wake up. And in a moment, 8 hours pass. We can't recall anything that takes place. And this happens all the time, right? So essentially, we can imagine non-being as being a period of non-awareness, right? Because when we fall asleep, we have no perceivability of the procession of time. And that is what it's like in non-being. We do not perceive time because we are non-being. Time exists in matter. Time exists in this physical world, as explained in the Hermeticum. There was Source, the creator, who then created the cosmos, and then within the cosmos there's time, and when within time there's changes, right? So time only exists within this realm. So it's not something outside of this realm, because time is change, time is procession, time is complexity, right? And so those dreamless nights is like what it would be for non-being. Or think about what it was like before you were born. Can you think about what it was like before you were born? You can't think about it, right? But I'm certain that you had a life before. You went into the state of decay, and then you left your last body, and then you went into non-being, and then the only time you can remember being is when you woke up in your mom's womb, right? So you can't remember non-being, but you can if you become a conscious being in this life. You can. And so we have to understand that life itself is a process of being a non-being, right? And so it's funny because in the state of non-being, like I mentioned previously, this is where the gurus and the Christ and the great teachers exist, in the state of non-being. However, they are conscious of their non-being. They are aware of themselves within this state of non-being. And this is where they all commune. This is where the gods commune, or the great teachers commune, in the state of non-being. This is where we receive our inheritance of eternal life, in the state of non-being, right? You think for 1 second, Buddha and the Jesuses and the other great teachers that lived, you think that there's not a place for them? You think we're all going the same place? Yes, we're all going the same place. We're all having the same experience, but some of us wake up earlier than others and become God. We wake up earlier than others and become aware of our God self, so that when we depart from this life, we can still have consciousness in non-being. And the only way you can have consciousness is not in non-being is, like I said, to become aware of yourself in this life. Who you truly are. Who we truly are, and become aware and conscious of that, so that when we leave this realm, we stay within that consciousness, and we can meet all the other great teachers. And that's the point that the great teachers wanted to get across, because when we don't become conscious, we keep going from life to life to life unconscious, and never experiencing consciousness in non-beingness. So I hope that makes sense to you. I'm gonna leave you with a poem, or with a statement made by Buddha. And he says that, understand that the body is merely the foam of a wave, the shadow of a shadow. Understand that the body is merely the foam of a wave, the shadow of a shadow. Understand that the body is merely the foam of a wave, the shadow of a shadow. I'll see you in the next video. Peace.